You know what they say about hindsight being 20/20? Well, mine's got laser precision when it comes to spotting red flags I should have caught months ago. Like when my brand new wife Jules looked around our perfectly decent ocean view room at the Fontainebleau and said, "My ex would have gotten me the penthouse suite." Not "Thank you, Dan, for this amazing honeymoon." Not "Wow, this view is incredible." Just a casual reminder that Travis Cole, her college boyfriend turned hedge fund hotshot, apparently had better taste in accommodations than her architect husband. I'm Daniel Wright, 38 years old, and I've spent the last 15 years designing commercial buildings that don't fall down. It's honest work that pays well enough to afford a Miami Beach honeymoon without checking my bank balance twice. But apparently it's not hedge fund money. "The penthouse, huh?" I said, setting down my suitcase and walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows. The Atlantic stretched out like a blue-green carpet dotted with white sailboats. "And how exactly do you know what Travis would have done?" Jules was already unpacking, hanging her designer dresses in the closet with the kind of precision she brought to her event planning business. Everything had to be perfect, controlled, arranged, just so. "I'm just saying, Dan. This is our honeymoon. Shouldn't it be special?" "I thought marrying me made it special." She paused, a silk blouse halfway to a hanger. "Don't be dramatic. You know what I mean." But I didn't know what she meant. Not really. We'd been together 2 years, engaged for 6 months, and married exactly 18 hours. In that time, Travis Cole's name had come up maybe a dozen times, always in these casual, throwaway comments that left me feeling like I was competing with a ghost. "How much contact do you still have with him?" I asked. "Contact?" She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Dan, we broke up 8 years ago. We're just Facebook friends." Facebook friends. Right. I made a mental note to check that later, then immediately felt like a paranoid husband. 18 hours in, and I was already having trust issues. Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The rest of our first day played out like a movie montage of honeymoon activities. Lunch by the pool, where Jules spent more time taking selfies than talking to me. A walk on the beach, where she complained about sand in her shoes. Dinner at the hotel's fancy restaurant, where she ordered the most expensive thing on the menu and then barely touched it. "The lobster's overcooked," she announced, pushing the plate away. "Seems fine to me," I said, trying a bite. It was perfect, actually. "Travis took me to this place in the Keys once. Now that was lobster." There it was again, Travis the ghost, haunting our honeymoon dinner. That night, lying in our king-sized bed, listening to the waves crash outside, I stared at the ceiling and wondered what the hell I'd gotten myself into. Jules was asleep beside me, her phone charging on the nightstand, occasionally lighting up with notifications she'd silenced but not turned off. At 3 a.m, curiosity got the better of me. I'm not proud of what I did next, but desperation makes you do stupid things. I knew her passcode. She'd never hidden it from me. And I told myself I was just checking the time. But when I picked up her phone, the screen showed a text preview from someone named TC. "Can't wait to see you next week. Miss you. TC. Travis Cole." My stomach dropped like I just stepped off a cliff. "Miss you." They were Facebook friends who hadn't spoken in years, according to Jules. Facebook friends don't send "miss you" texts at 3 a.m. I set the phone back down, my hands shaking slightly. This was my wife of one day, and she was getting late-night messages from her ex. The same ex who apparently knew how to book better hotel rooms than me. The next morning, Jules was different, distant. She kept checking her phone and smiling at messages I couldn't see. "Work stuff," she'd say whenever I asked. But it was Sunday morning in Miami. What event planner has work emergencies on Sunday morning? "I need to make some calls," she announced after breakfast. "Wedding vendor issues." She took her phone and walked out to the balcony, sliding the glass door shut behind her. I watched through the window as she paced back and forth, animated, laughing at whatever the person on the other end was saying. This wasn't a business call. This was the kind of conversation you have with someone who makes you light up inside. When she came back in 20 minutes later, she was practically glowing. "Everything sorted out?" I asked. "Oh, you know how it is. Crisis averted." But I didn't know how it was. In 2 years together, I'd never seen her take a work call that made her smile like that. The rest of Sunday crawled by like a wounded animal. Jules suggested we spend the day apart. She wanted to hit the spa, I could go to the gym or explore the hotel. Separate activities on our honeymoon. The red flags weren't just waving anymore. They were doing a full military parade. I ended up at the hotel bar, nursing a beer and watching football highlights on the big screen. The bartender, a guy about my age named Rick, struck up a conversation. "Honeymoon?" he asked, nodding at my new wedding ring. "That obvious?" The shell-shocked expression gives it away. Don't worry, happens to the best of us. Marriage is an adjustment. "How long you been married?" 12 years. Best advice I can give you? Trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. I thought about Jules on that balcony, glowing like she'd just won the lottery. What if your gut is telling you things you don't want to hear? Rick wiped down a glass, considering. Then you better listen extra hard. Gut instincts don't lie. People do. That evening, Jules suggested room service instead of going out. She said she was tired from the spa, but she spent the entire dinner scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging the expensive champagne I'd ordered. "Jules," I said finally, "are we okay?" She looked up, startled, like she'd forgotten I was there. "Of course we're okay. Why wouldn't we be?" "You seem distracted. Distant." "I'm just tired, Dan. It's been a long week with the wedding and everything." But she wasn't tired. She was somewhere else entirely, and I had a sick feeling I knew where. That night, after she fell asleep, I lay awake planning. If Jules was reconnecting with Travis, I needed to know. Not because I wanted to play detective, but because I needed to understand what I was dealing with. Was this just cold feet, or was my marriage over before it really began? The next morning, our last day in Miami, I made a decision that would change everything. "You know what?" I said over breakfast. "You're right about the penthouse suite." Jules looked up from her phone, surprised. "What?" "Yesterday, when you said Travis would have gotten you the penthouse. You're absolutely right. He would have." She set her phone down, suddenly paying attention. "Dan, I didn't mean—" "No, you're right. This is our honeymoon. It should be special. Epic, even." "What are you saying?" I smiled, and for the first time in 2 days it felt genuine. "I'm saying we should upgrade. Go big or go home, right?" The confusion on her face was priceless. "But we're checking out today." "Not anymore. I called the front desk this morning. The penthouse is available for another night. I booked it." This was a lie, but a necessary one. I had called the front desk, but not to book anything. I'd called to ask about checkout procedures and late fees, but Jules didn't need to know that. "Dan, that's wonderful, but we can't afford—" "Don't worry about the money. This is our honeymoon. We only do this once, right?" At least, I hoped we only did this once. Jules's eyes lit up, and for a moment she looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with. "Really? The actual penthouse?" "The works. Ocean views, private balcony, champagne service. Everything your ex would have done, but better." She threw her arms around me, and I caught a whiff of her perfume mixed with something else. Guilt, maybe, or relief that her distracted behavior hadn't ruined everything. "I love you," she whispered in my ear. "I love you too," I said, and meant it. Despite everything, despite the late-night texts and the mysterious phone calls, I still loved her. But love and trust are different things, and mine was hanging by a thread. "So when do we move?" she asked. "Actually, I thought we'd make it a surprise for when we get home. You know, extend the honeymoon feeling." Her face fell slightly. "What do you mean?" "Well, we're already packed. Flights are booked. But when we get back to Florida, I'll book us a weekend at that new resort in Key Largo. The penthouse suite there is supposed to be incredible." This was also a lie, but I was getting good at those. Jules nodded, but I could see the disappointment. She'd wanted the upgrade now, wanted to post photos of herself in a penthouse suite, wanted to prove to whoever she was texting that her husband could deliver the goods. "That sounds nice," she said, but her voice was flat. We spent our last day going through the motions of honeymoon activities. Poolside lounging, shopping in the hotel boutiques, one final dinner at the restaurant where Jules had complained about the lobster. But something had shifted. The magic was gone, replaced by a tension neither of us wanted to acknowledge. On the flight home, Jules slept most of the way, her phone clutched in her hand even while unconscious. I stared out the window at the clouds below and made plans, not for a romantic weekend in Key Largo, but for something else entirely. If my wife wanted to play games, I was ready to play, but she was about to learn that architects are very good at building things, including traps. Our house sits on a quiet street in Coral Gables, the kind of neighborhood where everyone knows everyone else's business but pretends they don't. I'd designed it myself 3 years ago before I met Jules, an open-concept modern with clean lines and smart home features that I'd probably gone overboard with. Motion sensors, automated lighting, security cameras, the works. At the time, I thought I was building a bachelor pad for the ages. Turned out I was building a surveillance system for my marriage. Jules had moved in 8 months ago, after our engagement. She'd brought her minimalist aesthetic and her need to control every detail, turning my comfortable home into something that belonged in an architecture magazine. Beautiful, but cold. Kind of like our relationship, now that I thought about it. We pulled into the driveway at 6 on Tuesday evening, both of us exhausted from travel and whatever emotional gymnastics we'd been doing for the past 3 days. Jules immediately went for her phone, checking messages she'd missed during the flight. "I need to call Kara," she announced, heading for the bedroom. "She's been handling my clients while we were gone." Kara Phillips was Jules' best friend and business partner, a social media influencer who specialized in luxury lifestyle content. She had 500,000 Instagram followers who hung on her every post about designer handbags and overpriced smoothies. Kara and I had never clicked. She had a way of looking at me like I was furniture that didn't quite match the decor. I carried our bags inside, listening to Jules's animated voice drifting from the bedroom. Another one of those conversations that made her light up, just like the mysterious call on our balcony in Miami. "Kara, you won't believe the drama I missed," Jules was saying, her voice carrying down the hallway. "Tell me everything." I unpacked mechanically, my mind elsewhere. The smart home system had logged everything while we were gone, which lights had been triggered by the cleaning service, when the mail was delivered, what the internal temperature had been. I loved data. Data didn't lie or send mysterious text messages at 3 a.m. Jules emerged from the bedroom an hour later, looking more energetic than she had all week. "Kara wants to grab drinks tomorrow," she said. "Catch up on everything. You don't mind, do you?" "Of course not. I've got a project deadline anyway." This was true. Morrison Commercial Properties wanted preliminary designs for a new office complex, and I was behind schedule thanks to the honeymoon. But I was also curious about these drinks with Kara. Something told me their conversation would be about more than missed client calls. That night, Jules went to bed early, claiming honeymoon exhaustion. I stayed up in my home office, ostensibly working on the Morrison project, but really thinking about Travis Cole and late-night text messages and the way my wife's face had changed when she talked to whoever was on the other end of that phone. I did something I'm not proud of, but marriage apparently makes you do things you never thought you'd do. I opened my laptop and searched for Travis Cole on social media. He wasn't hard to find. Travis Cole, senior investment manager at Meridian Capital Group. Harvard MBA, member of 3 different yacht clubs, owner of what appeared to be a very expensive Porsche. His profile picture showed him on the deck of a sailboat, wearing the kind of casual shirt that probably cost more than most people's car payments. His posts were exactly what you'd expect from a guy who'd made it big in finance. Photos from charity galas, vacation shots from places like Aspen and Martha's Vineyard, humble brags about his latest investment wins. The kind of life that would make an architect's salary look like pocket change. But it was his relationship status that made my stomach clench. Single. I scrolled through his photos, looking for any sign of Jules. Nothing recent, but there were older photos from years ago. Jules at what looked like a college party, laughing at something Travis was whispering in her ear. Jules and Travis at a restaurant, sharing what appeared to be a very intimate dinner. Jules wearing a necklace I'd never seen, looking at Travis like he was the only person in the world. These weren't just Facebook friends. These were 2 people who'd had something real, something deep. And based on that text message I'd seen, maybe they still did. I closed the laptop and went to bed, where Jules was sleeping peacefully, her phone on the nightstand like a third person in our marriage. The next evening, Jules got ready for drinks with Kara with the kind of care she usually reserved for client meetings. Designer jeans, silk blouse, the expensive perfume she saved for special occasions. "Just drinks?" I asked, watching her apply lipstick in the bedroom mirror. "Just drinks. Girl talk. You know how it is?" But I didn't know how it was. Jules and Kara's idea of girl talk usually involved dissecting other people's relationships and lifestyle choices. I had a feeling I might be tonight's main topic. "Have fun," I said, kissing her cheek. "Don't wait up for me. I'll probably be working late." Another lie. I had no intention of working late. After Jules left, I did something that would have horrified the man I was a week ago. I checked the location sharing on our family phone plan. Jules had never turned it off, probably because she'd never had a reason to hide where she was going. According to the GPS, she was at Nocturne, an upscale bar in Brickell that catered to Miami's young professional crowd, the kind of place where hedge fund managers might go for after-work drinks. I waited an hour, then drove to Brickell myself. Nocturne was exactly what I'd expected. Dim lighting, overpriced cocktails, and a crowd of people who looked like they'd stepped out of a lifestyle magazine. I found a spot at the bar where I could see most of the room without being obvious about it. Jules and Kara were at a corner table, heads close together in intense conversation. But they weren't alone. A man in an expensive suit was sitting with them, leaning back in his chair with the casual confidence of someone who'd never worried about money a day in his life. Travis Cole. In person, he was everything his photos suggested. Tall, athletic, with the kind of easy smile that probably opened doors and closed deals. He was also sitting close enough to Jules that their knees were touching under the table. I ordered a beer and watched them for 20 minutes. Jules was animated, laughing at Travis's jokes, touching his arm when she made a point. Kara kept looking around the room like she was making sure nobody was watching them, like they were doing something they shouldn't be doing. At one point, Travis reached across the table and tucked a strand of hair behind Jules's ear. It was an intimate gesture, the kind of thing you do with someone you've been intimate with before. Jules didn't pull away. My phone buzzed with a text from Jules. Having so much fun with Kara. Don't wait up. XOXO. No mention of Travis, of course. Just girl talk with her best friend. I finished my beer and left before they could spot me. But I'd seen enough. My wife was having drinks with her ex-boyfriend and lying to me about it. The question was, what was I going to do about it? The answer came to me as I drove home through the Miami night, past the gleaming towers of Brickell and the dark waters of the bay. I was going to do what I did best. I was going to plan, design, and build something. Not a building this time, but a strategy. If Jules wanted to play games, I'd give her a game she'd never forget. But first, I needed more information. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. I needed help. Will Brennan has been my best friend since college, back when we were both broke students living on ramen noodles and cheap beer. He'd gone into law enforcement while I'd chosen architecture, but we'd stayed close through job changes, relationships, and life's general chaos. Will was the kind of guy you wanted in your corner when things went sideways, smart, loyal, and completely without illusions about human nature. He was also recently divorced, which made him the perfect person to call when your marriage started showing cracks. "You look like hell," Will said, sliding into the booth across from me at our usual breakfast spot in Coconut Grove. It was Thursday morning, and I'd asked him to meet me before work. "Honeymoon that bad?" "Worse than bad. I think Jules is cheating on me." Will's expression didn't change. He'd been a cop for 15 years before switching to private security consulting, and he'd developed the ability to hear shocking news without flinching. "What makes you think that?" I told him everything. The text message, the phone calls, the drinks with Travis and Kara, the lies about girl talk. Will listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making notes on his phone. "So what do you want to do about it?" he asked when I finished. "I want to know the truth, all of it." "And then?" "Then I want to make sure she regrets ever lying to me." Will leaned back in the booth, studying my face. "Dan, I get it. Betrayal makes you want to burn everything down. But you need to think this through. If you're wrong about this..." "I'm not wrong." "If you're wrong," he continued, "you'll destroy your marriage over suspicions and coincidences. If you're right, you need to decide what outcome you actually want. Do you want to save the marriage, or do you want revenge?" I thought about Jules laughing at Travis's jokes, about the way she'd lit up when he touched her arm, about 3 days of honeymoon lies and distraction. "Revenge," I said without hesitation. Will smiled grimly. "Then we better make sure we do this right." We spent the next hour planning. Will had contacts in the private investigation world, people who could dig deeper into Travis and Jules's communications without breaking any laws. He also had ideas about surveillance, legal ways to monitor what was happening in my own home and with my own wife. "The key," Will explained, "is patience. You gather evidence, you document everything, and you wait for the right moment. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and all that." "How long did you know about Linda?" I asked, referring to his ex-wife. 6 months. I suspected for 6 months before I had proof she was cheating with her yoga instructor. His expression darkened. By the time I confronted her, I had enough evidence to make sure she got nothing in the divorce. Nothing. "Any regrets?" "Only that I didn't find out sooner." After breakfast, I went home to an empty house. Jules had left early for a client meeting, according to the note on the kitchen counter. But her location sharing showed she was at a Starbucks in Aventura, nowhere near any of her usual client venues. I called in sick to work and spent the day turning my house into an intelligence gathering operation. The security cameras I'd installed for protection became surveillance tools. The smart home system that controlled lights and temperature became a way to monitor who was coming and going. The shared cloud storage, where we kept photos and documents, became a treasure trove of information about Jules's activities. I felt like a spy in my own home, but I also felt purposeful for the first time since Miami. I had a project now, something to design and execute, and unlike my commercial buildings, this project was personal. Jules came home that evening in an unusually good mood, humming while she cooked dinner and asking about my day with genuine interest. If I hadn't known better, I might have thought we were back to normal. She moved through the apartment with an ease that felt practiced. Music on low, a bottle of wine uncorked with a little flourish, the kind of domestic choreography couples fall into when they're trying to remind themselves they still fit together. She ladled pasta onto our plates with a bright, distracted smile and kept stealing little glances at me as if she wanted to make sure I was watching her be appealing. "How was your client meeting?" I asked over pasta and wine, keeping my voice casual because anger makes you clumsy, and I didn't want to be clumsy tonight. "Oh, you know how it is. A bridezilla wants to change everything 3 weeks before the wedding, but we'll make it work." She laughed, an easy, practiced laugh, and reached across the table to squeeze my hand. The touch was warm and brief. "I'm sorry I've been distracted lately. Work stress, you know?" "I understand. These big events are important to your reputation," I said, nodding, letting the words land where she expected them to. "Exactly. Speaking of which, I might need to work this weekend. There's a venue walkthrough in Palm Beach that Kara and I need to handle." Her eyes were careful, quick, already moving on from the sentence as if she'd said it 100 times before. Palm Beach. The name stuck in my mouth. Palm Beach, where Travis Cole owned a condo and posted endless photographs of sunsets and cocktails. A place that suddenly felt small and dangerous in the way it intersected with everything I'd been uncovering. "That's fine," I said, even-tempered. "I've got the Morrison project to finish anyway." She looked relieved, like she'd been bracing for a fight and found only steady ground. "You're the best husband ever," she said, smiling in a way that asked for a compliment in return. The phrase landed oddly, light, absurd, and sharp. The best husband ever, who was apparently married to a woman planning weekend trips to her ex-boyfriend's city. For a beat, I pictured the two of them laughing over drinks in a condo that smelled of suntan lotion and someone else's cologne. I swallowed the image down like medicine and set my face into something neutral. That night, after Jules went to sleep, I lay awake listening to the cadence of her breathing. It sounded normal enough, soft, regular, the ordinary rhythm of a household. My mind, however, was anything but ordinary. 3 weeks ago, we'd been folding brochures for an imagined honeymoon. Now, in the dark, I was mapping out how to dismantle a life I'd helped build. I pulled out my phone and called Will. "She's going to Palm Beach this weekend," I told him the moment he picked up. "With Kara, supposedly for work." There was a pause, the kind that tells you the other person is switching to a different gear. "Want me to follow them?" he asked. He didn't need to be told the answer in full to know my meaning. "No." I shook my head even though he couldn't see me. "I want to do this right. Legal, documented, airtight. No vigilante drama." "Then we stick to the plan." Will's voice had a professional edge. He'd always been the one who preferred meticulous steps to heat-of-the-moment moves. "My contact should have preliminary information about their communications by Monday. We'll know exactly what we're dealing with." "And if it's what I think it is?" I asked, the question carrying all the weight of the nights I'd spent scrolling through messages and receipts and rehearsing the conversation I might never get to have. "Then we move to phase 2, Will said, calm and steady, as if we were talking about project milestones instead of the disintegration of a marriage. I hung up and stared at the ceiling, feeling the old apartment become a strange mix of memory and crime scene. The bed beside me held the shape of a woman who could still call me her husband, while the rest of my life seemed to be rearranging itself into a plan I barely recognized. The strangest part was how calm I felt about it. The acute glassiness of shock had dulled into something harder, calculating, cold. Maybe Will was right about revenge being a dish best served cold. The anger had settled into a focus that made everything else clearer, like a camera coming into focus after a period of blur. Friday evening, Jules packed for her Palm Beach trip with a care and attention that at another time might have made me smile. She folded dresses into a carry-on, carefully layering tissue around delicate items, spraying perfume into the air like punctuation. Designer clothes, expensive perfume, and the kind of lingerie she usually saved for special occasions, items chosen for presentation, for impression. She selected pieces like an artist, choosing pigments. It was obvious she had the image she wanted to project already sketched in her mind. "It's a luxury resort," she explained when she caught me watching her fold a silk blouse. "Image is everything in this business." "Of course. You want to make a good impression," I replied, keeping my voice neutral, letting a small, brittle smile do the work my words couldn't. She kissed me goodbye at the front door, her lips soft against mine in a way that had become routine. "I'll miss you," she said, voice airy, rehearsed. "Miss you too," I lied. After she left, I poured myself a scotch and settled into my office, the house suddenly feeling too large and too quiet. I opened the files I'd been assembling, running my finger over the edges of printouts, email threads, receipts, a hotel confirmation with a familiar name. My plan felt less like a fantasy and more like a project with milestones and deadlines. I had work to catch up on, plans to refine, and a marriage to end. The niceties of revenge, satisfaction, the image of justice served, were still distant. For now, there were only steps to take and evidence to collect. But first, I was going to make sure Jules's weekend in Palm Beach was everything she hoped it would be, and everything she'd regret. Monday morning came with Florida sunshine and a text from Will. "Meet me for lunch. I have what you need." I spent the morning pretending to work on the Morrison project, but my mind was elsewhere. Jules had returned from Palm Beach Sunday evening glowing with what she claimed was professional satisfaction. The venue walkthrough had gone perfectly, she said. The client was thrilled with their ideas. Everything was falling into place for what would be the event of the season. She'd shown me photos on her phone, the resort's ballroom, the oceanfront terrace, artistic shots of floral arrangements and table settings. Professional photos, the kind you take for a client presentation. But I noticed what she didn't show me, any pictures of herself or Kara actually working. Will was waiting for me at a seafood place in the Grove, looking like a man with secrets to share. He slid a manila envelope across the table without preamble. "Phone records, social media analysis, financial transactions," he said. "My contact is very thorough." I opened the envelope, my hand steadier than I'd expected. The first document was a call log showing communications between Jules's number and Travis's number going back 3 months. 3 months, right around the time we'd sent out wedding invitations. The frequency was damning. Daily calls in the weeks leading up to our wedding, often lasting 30 minutes or more. Text message logs showed hundreds of exchanges, with timestamps that corresponded to Jules's mysterious phone sessions on our balcony, in the bedroom during her supposed work emergencies. "Look at page 4, Will said quietly. Page 4 was a financial analysis. Jules had opened a new credit card account 6 weeks ago, one she'd never mentioned to me. The charges painted a picture I didn't want to see. Expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, hotel charges in cities where she'd claimed to be working alone, purchases at men's clothing stores. "She's been buying him gifts," I said, my voice flat. "Gets worse. Check the hotel charges against her location data." I cross-referenced the dates. Every time Jules had claimed to be working out of town, her credit card showed charges at hotels in the same cities. But her phone's GPS data showed she'd never been to any client venues. She'd gone straight from the airport to luxury hotels, where she'd stayed for days at a time. "The Palm Beach trip?" I asked. "The Breakers Resort. Presidential suite for 2 nights. Charged to her card, but the reservation was made by Travis Cole." I stared at the documents, feeling something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't just an affair, it was a full-blown relationship. Jules had been living a double life for months, using our wedding as cover for an elaborate deception. "There's more," Will said. "Social media analysis shows they've been careful not to post photos together, but location data puts them in the same places at the same times. Restaurants, hotels, even a weekend in Key West 3 weeks before your wedding." Key West, where Jules had claimed to be scouting venues for a destination wedding client. "How long do you think this has been going on?" I asked. "Based on the evidence? They never really broke up. The relationship just went underground when she started dating you. The restaurant noise faded into background static. I'd been played from the beginning. Every milestone in our relationship, moving in together, the engagement, the wedding, had been happening parallel to her ongoing romance with Travis. I wasn't her husband, I was her cover story." "Dan," Will said, leaning forward. "You okay?" "I'm fine. Better than fine, actually." And I was. The uncertainty was over. The wondering and suspecting and second-guessing myself, all of that was finished. Now I knew exactly what I was dealing with. "So what's the plan?" I closed the envelope and looked at my best friend. "I'm going to destroy them both. Publicly, professionally, completely. Legal revenge only," Will warned. "We do this smart." "Of course. I'm an architect, remember? I believe in solid foundations." That afternoon, I called my lawyer, David Chen, who'd handled the legal work when I'd bought my house. David was discreet, thorough, and had no love for cheating spouses after his own messy divorce. "I need to know my options," I told him, laying out the evidence Will had gathered. David reviewed everything with the methodical precision that made him excellent at his job. Florida is a no-fault divorce state, but this level of deception could impact asset division, especially if you can prove she used marital funds to support the affair. "What about the credit card?" She opened it before the marriage, so technically it's separate debt, but if she used your joint accounts to pay it off, that's a different story. I thought about our shared finances, the joint checking account Jules had access to, the way she'd been handling more of our household expenses lately while claiming her business was booming. I need you to do something for me, I said. I need a complete financial audit of everything we've shared since she moved in, every account, every transaction, every payment. That's going to take time. I've got time. And David, I want to know about prenups, retroactive ones. David raised an eyebrow. You mean a postnup? Those are tricky, but possible if both parties agree. Oh, she'll agree. Trust me. That evening, Jules came home from what she claimed was a vendor meeting, but I knew better. Her location data showed she'd spent 2 hours at Travis's downtown condo. She was humming again, that same satisfied tune she'd been humming since Palm Beach. Good day? I asked, not looking up from my laptop. Great day. Everything's coming together for the Hartwell wedding. It's going to be spectacular. The Hartwell wedding was real. I'd checked. But Jules wasn't the planner. According to the venue's website, they were using an Orlando-based company. Just another lie in an increasingly elaborate web of deception. I'm proud of you, I said, and meant it in a way she'd never understand. You've really built something special with your business. She beamed and kissed the top of my head. Thank you for being so supportive. I know I've been distracted lately. Just promise me something, I said, reaching up to touch her hand. Promise me you'll always be honest with me, no matter what? Jules' smile faltered for just a moment, so briefly I might have imagined it. Of course. We promised each other that in our vows, remember? Our vows, where she'd promised to forsake all others and keep herself only unto me, the same vows she'd been breaking for months, possibly years. I remember, I said. I remember everything. That night, I lay awake making lists. Jules had built her deception carefully, methodically, with attention to detail that would have impressed me if it hadn't been destroying my life. But every structure had weak points, stress fractures that could bring the whole thing down if you knew where to apply pressure. Jules had made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated me. She saw an architect, a man who built practical buildings and lived a predictable life. She didn't see someone who understood how to plan complex projects, how to coordinate moving parts, how to execute a vision with precision and timing. But she was about to learn. Phase 1 was complete. I had evidence. Phase 2 would be preparation. And Phase 3? Phase 3 was going to be spectacular. The thing about revenge is that it requires the same skills as any good construction project. Careful planning, quality materials, and perfect timing. Rush the job, and the whole thing collapses. Take your time, build it right, and you create something that lasts. I spent Tuesday morning at my real job, putting the finishing touches on the Morrison project. It felt good to focus on honest work, clean lines, and structures that did exactly what they were supposed to do. Unlike my marriage, this building would have integrity. My phone buzzed with a text from Jules. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. According to her location data, she was at Travis's condo. Again, they weren't even trying to be subtle anymore. I called Will. Tonight's the night. Are you free? What are we doing? Research, the kind that requires 2 people and a good camera. Will met me at 6, bringing equipment that looked suspiciously professional for a guy who worked in security consulting. Long-range camera, audio recording gear, and a laptop loaded with surveillance software. Where did you get all this? I asked. You don't want to know, but it's all legal to use in public spaces. We set up in the parking garage across from Travis's building, with a clear view of the entrance and the balcony of his 20th floor condo. Will's camera had a zoom lens that could read license plates from half a mile away. There, Will said, adjusting the focus. Balcony door just opened. Through the camera's viewfinder, I watched my wife step onto Travis's balcony wearing a silk robe I'd never seen before. She was carrying 2 glasses of wine, moving with the comfortable familiarity of someone who'd been there many times before. Travis joined her a moment later, shirtless, pulling her into an embrace that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. They stood there for several minutes, talking and laughing, completely at ease in their deception. You getting this? I asked. Every frame. High definition, time-stamped, GPS tagged. This will hold up in any court. I watched them through the camera lens, feeling strangely detached. The initial hurt had been replaced by something colder, more focused. These weren't the actions of people who'd recently reconnected. This was an established relationship, comfortable and intimate. How long do we stay? Will asked. Until we have everything we need. We stayed for 3 hours, documenting Jules's evening with Travis. The photos told a story that would be impossible to explain away. My wife of 2 weeks, in her lover's apartment, acting like she belonged there. At 10:30, Jules finally left, kissing Travis goodbye at his door like a woman leaving her boyfriend's place. She'd be home in 20 minutes, probably with another story about work emergencies and difficult clients. That enough evidence for you? Will asked, packing up the equipment. It's a start, but evidence is only useful if you know how to use it. What's next? Next, I build the trap. Wednesday morning, I called in sick again and drove to downtown Miami. I had appointments to keep and plans to set in motion. My first stop was David Chen's office, where I delivered copies of Will's surveillance photos along with the financial records we'd gathered. This is comprehensive, David said, reviewing the evidence. But what exactly do you want to accomplish? If it's just divorce, we have more than enough. It's not just divorce. I want to make sure they both pay for what they've done, publicly. David leaned back in his chair, studying me with the expression of a lawyer who'd seen too many clients consumed by revenge. Dan, I understand you're angry, but public humiliation can backfire. It can make you look vindictive. I don't care how I look. I care about results. Then let's talk strategy. Florida has alienation of affection laws that might apply here. If you can prove Travis knowingly interfered with your marriage, you might have grounds for a civil suit. How much could we get? Depends on the damages. Lost wages, emotional distress, the cost of the wedding. With his assets, we could be talking about serious money. I thought about Travis's Porsche, his yacht club memberships, his penthouse condo. What about his business? Could this affect his career? If it becomes public, possibly. Investment firms don't like scandal. Bad for the client relationships. Make it public. My second stop was a private investigator named Maria Santos, someone Will had recommended for more specialized work. Maria operated out of a small office in Coral Gables, and her client list included several high-profile divorce attorneys. I need background information, I told her, sliding a check across her desk. Everything you can find about Travis Cole and his business practices. What kind of background information? The kind that might interest his employers, or his clients, or the Securities and Exchange Commission, Maria smiled grimly. You want to destroy his career. I want justice. Justice and revenge aren't the same thing. In this case, they are. Maria took the job, promising preliminary results within a week. She specialized in financial investigations, the kind that could uncover hidden assets, unreported income, or questionable investment practices. If Travis had any skeletons in his professional closet, she'd find them. My third stop was the most important, a meeting with Kara Phillips. I'd been thinking about Kara's role in all this. She was Jules's best friend and business partner, but she was also the one person who knew about the affair and had been helping to cover it up. The drinks at Nocturne, the lies about work trips, the careful coordination of Jules's schedule, none of it would have been possible without Kara's cooperation, but Kara was also a businesswoman with her own reputation to protect. And she had something Jules and Travis didn't have, a reason to switch sides. I found her at a trendy coffee shop in South Beach, where the tables were crowded with laptops and the air smelled of roasted beans and expensive sunscreen. She sat beneath a ring light, phone propped on a mini tripod, tapping through a script she'd clearly used a dozen times. People stopped to watch her for a beat as she delivered a practice tip on brand partnerships. She smiled like a reflex, the way someone smiles on camera when the real expression would be something more complicated. She looked up when I approached, surprise flickering across her perfectly made-up face. For a second, she hesitated, the professional mask slipping just enough to show the person behind it. Dan, what are you doing here? She asked, voice pitched just high enough to be casual. We need to talk, privately. Kara glanced around the coffee shop, scanning the room the way influencers do, checking for an audience, measuring optics. I'm working right now. Can this wait? No, it can't. There was something in my tone that made her pack up her equipment without further argument. The ring light clicked shut, the tripod folded, and she slid her phone into its case with a nervous precision. People nearby watched the little domestic theater and then returned to their own screens. We found a quiet corner table away from her filming setup. For a woman who monetized transparency, she was suddenly very opaque. What's this about? She asked finally, folding her hands as if to make herself smaller in the face of confrontation. I placed one of Will's surveillance photos on the table between us with the casual cruelty of someone laying down evidence. Jules and Travis on a balcony, arms wrapped around each other, faces close enough to rule out anything like a business hug. Sunlight pooled across the photo, showing enough detail to make it impossible to misread. Kara's face went white, her perfectly lined lips parted, and the makeup on her cheeks seemed to pale as if the color had been drained out of her. Where did you get this? Does it matter? The question is, what are you going to do about it? She swallowed. For a moment she was all breath and colorless features, like a statue whose strings had been cut. Dan, You've been helping her lie to me. The work trips, the client meetings, the girls' nights out. You've been covering for her affair. Kara stared at the photo, her hands trembling slightly as if even the paper had the power to wound. It's not what you think, she whispered, the standard defense delivered with none of her usual conviction. It's exactly what I think. Jules has been cheating on me with Travis, and you've been helping her do it. She loves you. She started, then stopped, as if the words themselves tasted false. She loves his money, and his lifestyle, and the excitement of sneaking around behind my back. I leaned forward, lowering my voice so the nearby chatter couldn't eavesdrop. But here's the thing, Kara. When this all comes out, and it will come out, you're going to be part of the story. Your followers are going to know you helped your best friend cheat on her husband. Your brand is going to be associated with lies and betrayal. The color drained from her face completely. I could see the arithmetic play across her features. Engagement numbers, sponsored posts, the careful curation of a public life that paid the bills. Kara's entire livelihood depended on her image as a lifestyle guru and relationship expert. A scandal like this could erase years of work overnight. What do you want? She whispered, voice barely audible over the whir of the espresso machine. I want the truth, all of it. How long has this been going on? What exactly have you been helping them do? Kara was quiet for a long moment, staring at the photo as if some answer might be printed on the glossy paper. When she finally spoke, it was like peeling back a layer, slow and reluctant. 2 years, she said. It's been going on for 2 years. 2 years. The words landed with a brutal weight. Images of anniversaries, birthdays, small kindnesses I had offered, all of them threaded with duplicity. My entire relationship with Jules had been a lie. She never stopped seeing him, Kara continued, voice hollow at the edges. Even when she moved in with you, even when you got engaged. She said she was trying to choose between you, but she never really stopped. And you helped her. She's my best friend and my business partner. If she was happy, I was happy. The explanation was so simple and so damning in its casualness. Her loyalty had been transactional, folded into the same calculus that ruled sponsored posts and cross-promotional events. She'd chosen convenience and the maintenance of an image over the honest reckoning of what that image cost other people. What about me? What about my happiness? I asked, voice rawer than I'd intended. Kara finally looked up from the photo. Her eyes were rimmed with red, as if she'd somehow been crying in private, an image of vulnerability she never sold to anyone online. I'm sorry, Dan. I really am. But I couldn't choose sides. You already chose sides, I said. The question now is whether you want to go down with them. She swallowed hard, throat working. I could see she was weighing the ruin of reputation against loyalty, and for a moment her composure fractured into something human and immediate. Then, in a business-like motion that felt eerily rehearsed, she reached into her tote and pulled out a sleek contract folder. Inside was a single sheet of paper and an envelope stamped with a law firm's insignia. I slid a copy of the contract David Chen had prepared across the table. It was clean, precise, and unapologetic in its terms. This is an agreement, I said. You provide me with complete information about Jules and Travis's affair, dates, locations, conversations, everything you know. In exchange, I keep your name out of the public record when this all comes out. Kara stared at the document like it might dissolve if she blinked. Her fingers hovered over the paper as if touching it could enforce the pact. She looked up at me, eyes searching for something I wasn't offering. Forgiveness, perhaps? Or absolution? And if I don't sign? Then you become part of the story. Your followers learn that their lifestyle guru helped destroy a marriage. Your brand becomes associated with lies and betrayal. Your business partnership with Jules becomes public knowledge, along with your role in covering up her affair. Kara read through the contract with the attention of someone whose entire future depended on the fine print. When she finished, she looked up at me with something that might have been respect. You've really thought this through. I'm good at planning. She signed the contract without another word, then spent the next hour telling me everything she knew about Jules and Travis's relationship. The secret weekend trips, the expensive gifts, the long-term plans they'd been making. Jules had been living in two worlds, and Kara had been the bridge between them. By the time I left the coffee shop, I had everything I needed to move to the next phase. The foundation was solid, the materials were in place, and the timeline was set. Jules thought she was playing a game she couldn't lose, but she'd made one critical error. She'd underestimated her opponent. Now it was time to show her what a real architect could build. Thursday morning brought the kind of Miami weather that makes people move to Florida. Crystal blue skies, gentle breeze off the bay, temperature hovering around 75 degrees. Perfect weather for what was about to become the worst day of Jules's life. I'd spent the night putting the final pieces in place. Phone calls to make, emails to send, appointments to schedule. By dawn, I had set in motion a sequence of events that would unfold with the precision of a controlled demolition. Jules was in an exceptionally good mood at breakfast, humming that same satisfied tune while she made her organic smoothie and checked her phone. She had another client meeting scheduled for the afternoon, which, according to Kara's information, was actually a shopping trip with Travis to pick out furniture for his condo. "Big day today?" I asked, not looking up from my coffee. "Huge day. The Meridian account is finally coming together." There was no Meridian account, of course. It was just another lie in the elaborate fiction she'd constructed around her affair. But the name was perfect. Meridian Capital Group was Travis's employer, and by the end of the day, that connection would be very relevant. "That's wonderful. I know how hard you've been working on that." Jules beamed, kissing my cheek before heading out to start her day of deception. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then made my first phone call. "Will, it's time." "All systems go?" "All systems go." Will had spent the week making his own preparations, using his law enforcement contacts to ensure everything we were about to do was completely legal and thoroughly documented. We weren't just gathering evidence anymore. We were creating a public record. My second call was to Maria Santos, the private investigator. "I need that background information on Travis Cole today," I told her. "I was going to call you. You're going to want to see this in person." An hour later, I was sitting in Maria's office, staring at documents that made Travis's affair with my wife look like a minor indiscretion. Maria had uncovered a pattern of questionable business practices that stretched back 3 years, client funds moved through unauthorized accounts, investment returns that didn't match market performance, expense reports that included personal purchases. "Is this enough to get him fired?" I asked. "It's enough to get him investigated, maybe prosecuted, depending on how deep this goes." "How do we make sure his employers see this?" Maria smiled. "Anonymous tip to their compliance department. Happens all the time in this business." "Do it." My third call was to David Chen, who'd been busy preparing legal documents that would turn my divorce from a private matter into a public spectacle. "The alienation of affection suit is ready to file," he told me, "but once we do this, there's no going back. This becomes part of the public record. File it, today." Dan, are you sure about this?" "Once these documents are public?" "I'm sure. Jules made this public when she decided to cheat on me. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it." By noon, the first domino had fallen. Travis Cole was sitting in a conference room at Meridian Capital Group, trying to explain financial irregularities to the compliance department, while his career imploded in real time. Maria's anonymous tip had triggered an internal investigation that would likely result in his termination before the weekend. The second domino fell at 2 o'clock, when David Chen filed the alienation of affection lawsuit in Miami-Dade County Court. The filing included detailed evidence of the affair, financial records showing how Jules had used marital funds to support her relationship with Travis, and a request for damages that would make headlines in the local legal community. But the third domino was the masterpiece, a coordinated social media campaign that would turn Jules's carefully constructed image into a cautionary tale about infidelity and deception. Kara had provided me with access to Jules's social media accounts, along with detailed information about her followers and business contacts. Jules had built her event planning business on her reputation for creating perfect moments, fairy tale weddings, romantic proposals, celebrations of love and commitment. Her Instagram feed was full of happy couples and inspirational quotes about finding your soulmate. It was about to become something very different. At 3 o'clock, while Jules was shopping for furniture with Travis, I began posting to her social media accounts. Not fake posts, real photos from Will's surveillance, real text messages from her phone, real evidence of her double life. Each post was carefully crafted to tell the story of a woman who'd built her business on love while destroying her own marriage. The first post was a photo of Jules and Travis on his balcony, with the caption, "Sometimes the real fairy tale is the one you're living in secret. Vi tar authentic, shar, living, my truth, shar, sorry not sorry." The second post was a screenshot of her credit card statements showing charges at luxury hotels and expensive restaurants, with the caption, "Investing in experiences that matter. Some things are worth any price." Worth it, how no regrets, sound priorities. The third post was the most devastating, a side-by-side comparison of our wedding photo and a surveillance photo of her kissing Travis, with the caption, "Before and after finding my real soulmate. Sometimes you have to follow your heart, even when it's complicated." Follow your heart? True love, new beginnings. Within an hour, the post had dozens of comments from confused clients, shocked friends, and angry followers. Jules' phone was probably exploding with notifications, but she wouldn't be able to do anything about it. I'd changed all her passwords. At 4:30, my phone rang. It was Jules, and she was hysterical. "Dan, what's happening? My Instagram, my Facebook, someone's posting things, terrible things." "What kind of things?" I asked calmly. "Photos of me and Travis, private photos, and my credit card information. Someone's trying to destroy my business." "That's awful. Have you called the police?" "The police can't do anything about social media. Dan, you have to help me. Someone's trying to ruin my life." "I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Maybe someone hacked your accounts?" "It's not a hack. These are real photos, real information. Someone's been watching me, following me." "That does sound serious. Maybe you should come home so we can figure this out together." There was a long pause. I could hear Travis's voice in the background, urgent and angry. "I can't come home right now," Jules said finally. "I'm dealing with a crisis." "What kind of crisis?" Another pause. "Work stuff. You wouldn't understand." "Try me." "I have to go, Dan. I'll call you later." She hung up, but I wasn't finished. The final domino was about to fall. At 5 o'clock, I sent a group email to every contact in Jules' business network. Clients, vendors, venues, photographers, florists, caterers. The email included links to the social media posts, copies of the surveillance photos, and a detailed explanation of how Jules had been using her event planning business as cover for her affair. The subject line was simple: the truth about Jules' Wright events. By 6 o'clock, Jules' business phone was ringing nonstop with clients canceling contracts, vendors refusing to work with her, and venues banning her from their properties. Her reputation, built over 5 years of careful networking and relationship building, was destroyed in a matter of hours. But I wasn't done yet. At 7 o'clock, I posted one final message to her social media accounts, a video I'd recorded that morning, sitting in our kitchen, speaking directly to the camera with the calm precision of someone who'd planned every word. "Hi, everyone. This is Dan Wright, Jules' husband. By now you've seen the evidence of what my wife has been doing for the past 2 years. I want you to know that I didn't post these things out of anger or spite. I posted them because I believe in truth and because the people who trusted Jules with their most important moments deserve to know who they were really dealing with. Jules built her business on the idea of creating perfect love stories, but while she was planning other people's fairy tales, she was destroying ours. She used our marriage as cover for an affair that started before we even got engaged. She used our shared finances to fund romantic getaways with another man. She lied to me, to her clients, and to everyone who believed in her. I'm not looking for sympathy or support. I'm just setting the record straight. Jules made her choices, and now she has to live with the consequences. As for me, I'm moving on. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm starting over with a clean slate and a clear conscience. To everyone who's been hurt by this situation, her clients, her friends, her family, I'm sorry you had to find out this way. But I'm not sorry for telling the truth. Truth is the foundation of everything worthwhile, and without it, nothing else matters. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening. I posted the video and then turned off my phone. By now, Jules would be in full panic mode, trying to manage a crisis that was spiraling completely out of her control. Travis would be dealing with his own problems at work, trying to explain why his personal life was suddenly very public and very messy. But I was done. The structure was complete, the demolition was finished, and the debris was settling. All that remained was to walk away from the wreckage and start building something new. I poured myself a scotch and sat on my back patio, watching the sun set over Coral Gables. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and phone calls and the messy business of ending a marriage. But tonight, for the first time in weeks, I felt at peace. Jules had taught me something valuable about the difference between love and trust, between the life you think you're building and the one you're actually living. It was an expensive lesson, but a necessary one, and now class was over. The house was quiet except for the sound of my phone buzzing with notifications I had no intention of reading. Somewhere across town, my wife was learning what it felt like to have her carefully constructed world collapse in real time. I raised my glass to the setting sun and smiled. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting mad. Sometimes it's getting architectural.